Okay, let's try this the second time, because the first time my battery died after 7 minutes, so I had to charge. I hope 1 hour of charging will be good enough. To celebrate my 400 video, which would be this one, I decided to do something a little bit different. And yes, I know I did already 2 videos that weren't reviews, but I know, most of my subscribers only want reviews, don't care about the personal stuff and all that, but I don't care about that, because I like to do that. And this is why I actually wanted to address one thing that I just got when I posted the following thing. I've posted on Twitter, and I said, wanted to record my 400 video and tell you all how I got where I am now, forgot to charge the cam, don't have a spare battery charging. All legit. Now the answer was from, and I have no problem calling people out who piss me off, because why does he follow me in the first place if he doesn't care? Now here, the answer is, we don't care about how you got where we are, nor your battery cam status. And I'm being straightforward. Fuck you. Don't watch my content, don't do anything of that. I don't care about what you don't want. If you don't want to watch it, don't watch the content. Someone else, Søren Lindhoff, replied, actually I do. And yeah, that's where I am. I am a little bit pissed, which I wasn't the first time, but let's forget about that. I still want to tell you my story, how I started YouTube, where I got, or how I got where I am now. And yes, of course I would have wished for not to have seen this comment, because I think I would have been in a way better mood, especially since the camera died. But yeah, let's just forget the fuck-offs here on the channel. Why does someone follow me on Twitter if he doesn't care about the personal opinion that I have? Just don't follow me, because on Twitter I post pretty much just that. Man. Okay, let's start off with my story. First of all, where should I start? I have to get quite back early in time, because the first time I went a little bit too long, so to get this a little bit shorter. I'm doing YouTube for about 2.5 years. I think I started in August 2.5 years ago. And the actual start of the happening, or of the idea of YouTube, I think started around 3 years ago, but I have to get a little bit further back in time to get to where I started. Because the first Android phone that I had, I think that has to be mentioned, because this is how the whole passion about my tech relation started. It was the HTC Desire. I think most of you know this better as the Nexus One, because here in Germany we didn't have the Nexus One, but we had the HTC Desire, a very similar phone in many aspects, and the customer support back already as it is now in terms of Nexus devices was pretty much the same. So I started going into custom ROMs. I did a lot of that, custom kernels and all that, and I was pretty passionate about, and I noticed that I go a little bit deeper into the whole research, and I knew a little bit more than the average XDA user. Of course, not some as much as the developers and so on. So I definitely wasn't that good, but I could answer a lot of questions from other people's, and I did just that. And after a while, I did a little bit of longer posts and all that, kind of like some articles, and there I was writing for, I'm not quite sure which blog it was, for like 2 or 3 articles. I definitely liked that. And then the opportunity came up, and I'm pretty much sure, if you follow me already a little bit longer, or if not, but you know of definitely the person, Armando Ferreira. He and Brian Healy started a blog called The Droid Effect, and they were just starting it. They explained what the whole thing is. They wanted to do something out of the ordinary, not really like news posts, but things you just don't read everywhere. And I really like this idea, because of course there are so many blogs outside here on the Android spectrum, of course in the mobile spectrum as well, that talk pretty much only about that, just news and reviews. And we wanted to do something different, and actually it wasn't we yet, but they were searching for writers, and they said you can just send us your article in and we will publish that. And there were a few ones. I read that and I thought, wow, that would be a cool chance to get to know more other people who think the same. So I posted one, and it got accepted. It was sent in, got quite nice comments, because not quite even sure what it was. One was about custom ROMs, one was about kernels, the power of root and something like that. And people accepted it quite well. It got a lot of responses. Then I sent in a second one and the third one. And after the third one, and that is, I still remember it as it was tomorrow, yesterday, as it was tomorrow, as it was yesterday. I was working at night, the night shift. And I think it was a hangout message from Armando Ferreira, and I thought because back then he was already big with at least 150,000 subscribers or so, and he said, hey, we like what you do, maybe you want to get on a hangout and we can talk a little bit more about that. And I was super excited back then because, man, it's a big site. Okay, it wasn't big then and it wasn't really big after all, but still, it was from Armando Ferreira, who was a very influential person. I got on the hangout, we talked about that, and after a little bit of a talk, I was part of the Droid Effect team, and this was something very exciting to me. Of course, he already did YouTube videos, and after a while also Brian Healy started. I pretty much just wanted to make articles, which was fine already for me, but of course, seeing that someone as big as him, Armando, makes videos and Brian Healy started them as well, I thought maybe it would be the time as well to try it. And I made a few videos, and I'm not actually quite sure what the first ones were, but what I still remember, and that is, I think, a very important video why I got a little bit more into videos after all, because I think if that video wouldn't have happened that early, I don't think I would be where I am now, because I was just finishing my vacation, I just got home, but I had a few days left of vacation where I was here. And I wanted to review something, but I didn't really have anything. And at that point in Germany, the Toshiba Excite Pro or something like that was released. It was the first Tegra 4 device on the market, and Germany got it pretty much the first, and I thought if I would get that and review it, and I pretty much, and of course now I think it was a lame move, but I pretty much just bought it with the intention to get it back and make the review, which I did. And this review, I'm not quite sure why it got the attention that it got, but of course, considering the size of my channel, it got, I would say at this point, I'm not quite sure how many views, but let's say 40, 50,000, or I'm not quite sure. I don't really know how much it did get. But this was very, very exciting because I got so many positive comments, and this video was super raw. If you go back and check that, it was extremely bad, because maybe the one helping thing was the intro or the kind of unboxing that I did, because the video started, let's start with the unboxing, and all I did is push off the box from the table, and that got quite a few funny responses and all that. Of course, I got many comments that I sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, which back then I didn't actually think of that would happen, and still I see this. I get these comments from every now and again, not that much anymore like I did before, but still. So this was the kind of stepping stone I've seen. People like what I do. Of course, the video was super raw, and with time my passion started, but I didn't really have the access for the review devices. So we've continued the blog for a while, but it didn't get quite where I wanted it to be. And this is where the whole thing got a little bit weird, because we made some live hangouts and all that, but I noticed that the traction of the channel or the blog just wasn't where I wanted it to be. We didn't really, Brian Healy just didn't have the time, Armando as well, and also the many hangouts that we did got kind of delayed or cancelled because Armando never had time. And this is something that pissed me off, because I thought back then that if you start something with a group of people that rely on you, you should be reliable, and he wasn't, and I was pissed about that. And for a quite long time this pissed me off, because it felt to me like he would just use the blog, our effort and all that, to push his content out. And I've talked about that in my personal, or not personal, but in my podcast that I had at the Damn Jam Project, which is pretty much a thing of the past. I think I've made like 7 episodes with Jamar, some without him. And I've talked about that, and then actually a different discussion started, because someone posted, oh, now I know why Armando screwed up Brian Healy and the Damir, which is a thing of the past. I totally get that. It was lame for me to call him out like this. We should have definitely discussed this in person with each other and not go into public, that, because washing your dirty clothes outside is a little bit lame, but I didn't really want it to, because I was done with the whole thing. I was off the channel already, didn't really think anyone would or listen to the podcast and not post it, so I could have just deleted the post, and I should have maybe, but yeah. What then started though, he made a kind of comment on that pissed me off even more so, which I don't care about anymore, because back then what he said is, he made me look like I was a possessive maniac, that I wanted to own the Droid Effect, that I wanted to kind of be the big boss, which I never wanted. But what I wanted is to, if someone commits to a channel, stick with that, and that just never happened, and that made me angry. So I wasn't right happy with where things started, because he took so many of the things that I said and turned it around to make me look like an ass. I was very pissed a long time. I still don't follow anything of him because I don't want anything to do with him anymore. I think still that some of the stuff he does isn't legit. He does it for the money, but don't care about that anymore. That's just a thing of the past. But what I have to give him credit for, if not for him and Brian Healy, especially for him, I wouldn't have done YouTube, because I've seen through him that it is possible as a YouTuber in your spare time to get a knowledge, to get views, to get comments, and the whole social activity that I've never seen before. Because without the live hangouts, without the blog posts, without the videos, I would have never gotten into the whole YouTube sphere where you have access to so many people that I know now over YouTube, over Twitter, that I know now over Google Plus, and through YouTube as well. And now thinking back, I've said, yes, back then it pissed me off. Back then I kind of not hated him, sounds too hard, but disliked him. And I've so many times wished that I've never have sent in the first article. But thinking back now, I say this was kind of the way you have to go, because without that, this would never happen. I wouldn't have done YouTube videos for 2.5 years now. I would have never been able to play with devices, tablets, laptops, smartphones at all. I would have never gotten the chance to get out there and get to know a lot of people that I would have never seen otherwise. So this is definitely something where I have to give the credit because, or let's say, of all the bad things that happened, or I see as a bad thing, I think it ended kind of in a good way. The relationship doesn't really matter at this point. It was a necessary evil for me, because I still didn't like the way things ended. Of course, I admit it, I did a lot of things wrong as well, but the way he reacted just wasn't up to my snuff. So this is where I kind of started off in terms of that. Then I did it. Let's get a little bit back to the podcast. I did a podcast with Jamal the Boys, who also entered the Droid Effect team for a while. But since this whole thing went down, Brian Healy just didn't get the time to make any more videos, and he cut that off. And I'm not quite sure how much he's into tech anymore, because people just change over time. You change your priorities, because Brian Healy, YouTube and the blogging didn't give him enough, I guess, personal satisfaction and so on, and so he stopped it. I think he has different priorities now. Jamal did it for a lot longer, and we actually started to do a podcast. We talked about tech and a little bit of other things, but what I noticed that he has a family, and this takes a lot of time, and with all the other things and the whole time difference we have, it just wasn't reliable, and I didn't want to burden him too much with this whole thing to make it a little bit stressful, because if I do something, I get maybe a little bit too passionate about, or too addicted to it. So if I start something, I want to get pulled through for it, and I didn't want him to feel kind of pushed by me. So we kind of let that die, and I continued my own thing. I started my own blog that I actually included him as well, but he didn't write for that as well anymore, and at some point I didn't either, because starting a blog from scratch up without any AdSense and all that, I pretty much got no comments at all. So it was had to be dead project in the first place. So this is something that just died off. I would have really liked, or I would still like to write for a blog. Oh, okay. I got actually an answer on the first topic, or the tweet that I mentioned. So let me see what he answered. He says, because you were better before, now just girly stuff. Oh my this, oh my that, blah blah blah. Focus on tech, please. Okay. I was better before. Yeah, okay. I accept that. I've asked that in the last video. I've changed, but I do these videos, man. Not sure what to say anymore. Yeah, this video went completely different and would have ended so much better if I wouldn't have read this tweet, because it really pissed me off because of the girly stuff. For me, it's not just reviews. For me, YouTube is a two-sided way. Reviews and the interaction with you, and you, especially due to the ramblings, that is what it's important for me, because if I wouldn't do tech reviews anymore, I would still continue doing the ramblings. And I've told you why I do the ramblings, and calling this now girly stuff, I have to think about what I have to reply on that. So getting back to that, I did videos, I did the whole thing, I started. Then I think without Dell, this whole channel wouldn't still be going on, because, man, this tweet. It was Markus Schütz from Dell who gave me the first chance. He was the first one who actually said, because I've talked to him once in person on an event and asked him how or why did he get me stuff before no one else did. And he said, it's always good to have a fresh perspective and give people just new on the scene a chance. And that's what he did. And I got a quite good reputation on their side, because I reviewed the devices quite fast, didn't really hold on to them too long, made quite decent reviews back at the time. So right now, if I want a Dell device, I get them quite easily, quite in time. Not maybe the first, but still, some of them actually I do. It always depends on the timing that I ask for it. But then, knowing that, I'm not quite actually sure which was the second brand. I think it was actually Lenovo that gave me a chance to review a Lenovo Yoga 2 Pro. Not really much from that happened, because the Yoga device, or Lenovo here in Germany, their press agency seems like to have never devices. So right now I have one again, like after almost a year of difference. And at that point I just sent out so many messages to different companies, and after a while I got a few one I also got through the back then owner from TapTech. I asked him, because I was in contact with him a little bit on YouTube, on Hangouts, and we talked about that, and I asked him for some contact. And I think without him I wouldn't have ever gotten the contact for example, Huawei, I think Honor as well, and a few different companies. So at least 4 or 5 companies I just got through him. And the other ones I got through, I would say, luck, because I'm not actually ever in contact directly with a brand. It's always the press agencies. I'm not quite sure how things work in different countries, but everything gets handled through the press agencies. So, yep. So I got those. This kind of continued. I think if I would do more professional reviews with more of also German content, I would have easier chances to get more devices in the future, because, for example, Asus and Acer are the 2 brands that said, no, we don't give out review devices for someone in Germany who makes English stuff. We need German content, so no chance. So I've thought about then making a German channel, but this just doesn't work out, because my whole tech that I consume is English, and talking that about then in German just doesn't work out for me. I couldn't do that, so I had to kind of scratch it off my list, even though it reduces my chances to get a little bit bigger and get some special brands here. But yeah, that is the caveat. But I can be super happy that I'm fortunate enough that so many, at least the press agencies, don't care about in which language I release my content, because if I would release the content in German, of course, I could maybe have a bigger following by now if I would have made good content, because of course there is not so much competition. If I do English, I have the whole world as a competition, not just the US, Canada, UK. Everyone does English content. But if I would have had German, of course I would have had a smaller community of people that I could spread out my message through. For example, I would have maybe Switzerland, because they understand German, Austria, Germany, and maybe some smaller parts where just German speaking person lives. But the competition would be so much smaller, because there aren't millions of tech channels in Germany. So my chances wouldn't have been better, but it didn't work out that way. And it's also because of the Droid effect. All the persons that I knew, all the contacts that I had, all the online friends that I have were pretty much talking a lot of different languages, and the only common one was English. So that's why it continued with English. I tried German for a while, but the ratio for the German views and the English views was more than like 1 to 20. So I just ditched that. It just didn't work out. Maybe I would have had to push a little bit harder, wait a little bit longer to get that working, but also doing reviews in 2 languages would have been a little bit too exhausting, I think. So I just scratched that off. But where am I now? About 2.5 years later, I have quite a few brands now. I think like 11 or 12 or so. I get the devices, I get the flagships, not always in time, not definitely always the first. It takes a little bit more sometimes to get those, but I get them, which is the most important thing. I get to play with stuff. Of course, I think my chances to make the channel grow faster would have been a lot better if I would be able to get those devices earlier, if I would maybe spend my own money. But you have to see this still after all as one thing. This is a hobby, and I already paid way too much for the whole equipment, for the whole room, for the whole setup. And I just don't want to spend any more on devices, especially since I would never be able to get the money back. Because if I pay, for example, 300 or 400 euros for device, I get at best, even if I make a really early entry for the review, maybe like 50 bucks back. Because the best device ever that made me the most money is the LG Leon. That is actually only the device that I would have made up the costs, because the device back then cost around $150 and I made a little bit more actually back of that, but that was actually also a review unit. But seeing my best video making not even close to 200 euros, how could I ever make the money back? And even if I would release more reviews earlier, because for example, if the Samsung Galaxy S7 would have been a total disaster, I got it from day one, it was available here in Germany. And even though I just paid 20% less because of the rebate that I got from my workplace and the fact that I sold my Gear VR, I paid about 500 euros and the video got 1,700 views so far. So I maybe made like $1 or $1 off of it. So this would have been the worst investment ever. And if I would now multiply this with more devices, I would have ended up so much. I would have had no money at all. So I definitely heavily rely on the free review units, and just paying the shipping is okay, because often on many devices I don't even make the shipping back, because the shipping at least costs me at around $5 to maybe $10 in general. And sometimes many devices don't make up. Of course, there are other devices that make up for that multiple times. Then I make maybe like 40, and those then make up for the losses that I make on other videos. So you always have to see that as a balance. Overall, I make maybe a little bit more than I pay for the shipping, but I'm still, like I said on my setup tour, I think, or not quite sure which video it was, but I'm still in the reds. For all the equipment and setup that I paid for, I haven't earned not nearly as much on YouTube anymore, so I will have to stick a little bit longer here. But as things are going right now, because I had so many times when I thought this channel wouldn't go anywhere, I had the devices way too late, they didn't get any views and so on. I didn't grow fast enough and it was small enough. But at some point, and I think that's like maybe like half, 3/4 of a year, when I actually had to see my potential, accept where I am, I understand, and just have to see, okay, this is where I am. I won't grow big anymore, and I just have to accept that and just have more fun. And this is also the reason why I do the ramblings, why I do videos like this, because if I would just do it for the success I have of the reviews, I wouldn't be happy enough, because this doesn't give me good enough of a feedback, a positive feeling back, because it's just not good enough. To feel good about my reviews and the whole other thing, the rises that I get, I would have at least needed like 2 or 3 times what I do right now in terms of views and comments and likes and all that. But the ramblings give me that in some way. So that's the definite balance that I need, because that is also, I think I've explained that in one video, that the ramblings are the balancing factor. Without the ramblings, I wouldn't be able to produce only the reviews, because a review is quite time exhausting and also brain exhausting, because you put so much time into it. I'm not quite sure how much time other reviewers take on it, but I review these devices really thoroughly. Maybe not every little aspect, but the ones that are important for me. And then making the review, this all takes up a lot of time. But if I would only do this and only reply on these kind of questions, because the most common question that I get is, should I buy this device or should I buy that? They have a question about this device, if it's good or not. And it's pretty much only if they should buy something or not. But that is not the main intention, because I want the social interactivity with you, and these I only get from the ramblings. There I get positive feedback about how I changed personally, how my setup changed, and gives me a lot of things, and also get to know a lot of the things that people want to see, at least on these videos. And I have to admit one thing, I definitely did not nearly match my goal that I personally set for myself for these ramblings, because in late 2015 I set my goal that I wanted to reach solid 1,000 views for the ramblings, and I'm not nearly close enough because they are still pretty much the same as they were last year, actually worse in average, because back then I had a few ones that jumped out with 1,500 views, almost 2,000 views, a little bit more sometimes, but the average this year is at around 3 to 5, 600 views. Some maybe, if I'm lucky, get closer to 1,000, but don't even reach that. So I'm still way far off, and this just shows me that the biggest part of my subscribers is just interested in the reviews, which saddens me, of course. And then reading comments like, we don't care about what you publish and all that, or these kind of videos, is what upsets me, because I don't want to be just a reviewer. I want to be a YouTuber with the activity, and that is the thing that I want to achieve, because all the big channels, they have a really, because if they, for example, Jace2Sans or Ed from Texas, if they release a vlog, they sometimes get more views on these videos than they do on their actual tech videos. And this shows how much of a close relationship they already have. Of course, if you have 600,000 subscribers, it's easier to get 100 that follow you really closely and watch this personal stuff, or let's say a few thousand. And then the proportion is just odd, because when I see these kind of videos, they make up like, or if I just see the stats, how many of my views are from subscribers, it's just 5%, and there is a usual average that should be at around 10 to 20%, so I'm even far off. So this shows me even more so that no one cares about the personal opinion of mine on the tech side of things, and just the reviews. And this is something that I would want to change so badly, but I just can't, and I will keep pushing onto this, because I've set this on my to-do list, and I've actually read that thread out, just so you know what's on my to-do list. If I will be able to do that. How does this work? Where can I read my tweets? So, to-do list. One more SSD. I definitely need that because I have storage problems. Make a rambling cover art. I want something consistent, because I just want to easier to see people what the rambling is and what the review is, or something else. But I'm so artistically of a failure. I have no eye for that. It would have been nice if someone could do that for me. Hint, hint. The next thing, make more raw non-review videos, and this is something that I've talked about here. And then giving less fuck about things in general, have more fun. And I've definitely failed on the give less fuck about things in general, because a tweet that I mentioned earlier shouldn't affect me that much, but it still does, because I'm very, very bad when it comes to negative feedback. I appreciate the positive feedback, but the negative feedback is one negative comment kind of outweighs like 20 positive ones. I'm not quite sure why that is, because maybe I'm a very emotional person when it comes to negative or critical comments. Critical actually okay if they are constructive, but the critical ones that just kind of attack me on a personal level is something that really, really annoy me. But I will do more of those personal videos, more of these kind of vlogs. Why? Because I enjoy them, and I enjoy the feedback from this. If I see this going nowhere in a few months, I will maybe stop them, but as far as it's constantly as good as it is, it's fine enough for me. Of course, I always have to see it in a way, because the reason why I did more of these videos the last few days, because I just didn't have any review units. And I've said that it's a little bit of a drought right now. I have to wait a little bit longer to get a few more devices. So I think May should get better. And the more I have less of free time besides the review, then of course I will make less videos. But if I have a time where I don't have any review units, I will just make more of these videos, because I want to constantly push up content. And yes, I know these videos could actually do more harm than good to the channel, but that is just something that I have to accept. And if I check my following count, my subscribe. Okay, I think the video stopped, but I'm not quite sure why. Oh, okay, I crossed the 30 minutes barrier. So I think I've talked already for long enough, so I will just stop this here. like I said, the video went completely a different way just because of the tweet. If that wouldn't have happened, if I would have just charged my battery, if I wouldn't have been so cheap not to have a spare battery, things would have turned out completely different, because I was way more positive back then as I am now. And I completely get it if you dislike this video just because of that fact. But yeah, that's how things are. That's is how it is. I still hope you enjoyed it. I don't think, man, this video went out so the different way. Yeah, I'm not gonna continue anything longer. Okay, bye.